to discuss the Missouri House Districts 19, 20, 21, and 29. And this forum is sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Kansas City, Jackson, Clay, and Platte counties. My name is Elizabeth Darr. I'm your moderator and a proud member of this league. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan national organization now over 100 years old. Despite our name, our membership is open to everyone. We are an issues-oriented organization. We neither screen nor endorse candidates. Our forums provide information and education so that voters can make informed choices at the polls. We envision a democracy where every person has the desire, the right, the knowledge, and the confidence to participate. Our mission is to empower voters and to defend democracy. We're here for this approximately 90-minute voter education event to provide an opportunity for voters to listen to the candidates, present their positions on questions which have been submitted to the League via the email address forumsquestion@lwvkc.org. All of the candidates have been invited to participate in our forum tonight. There are 2 candidates for each position, and we welcome and appreciate these candidates being with us. We have Aaron Crosley from District 29, Ingrid Burnett from District 19, Robert Sauls from District 21, and Karen Spalding, also from District 19. I'd like to introduce you to the other league members volunteering with me tonight. Our forums chair is Anitra Steele. Our timekeeper is Misty Yeager. And our tech host, who has worked very hard tonight to get things up and running, is Carl Bettis. Our forum will be recorded and available on the League's webpage, and that webpage again is lwvkc.org, as well as on our Facebook page. So let me explain tonight's forum. I will be asking each of the candidates questions to respond to, voters' questions in random order determined by this grid, which I just showed you a second ago. They will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. At the end of the evening, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing remarks. Candidates, please answer the questions asked and stick to the topic. There will be no rebuttals, but you can go back to an issue during your closing remarks. So let's finally get started. First one is, what has motivated you to run for the state legislature, and what experience do you bring to the office? And we'll start with Aaron.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Glad to be on this forum with all of you guys, and I count it a privilege to be here, and I wanted to thank the League of Women's Voters for having me. The reason why I have entered the political scene is year after year, I did not see a candidate, only one candidate on the ballot, and that's really not what democracy is about. I believe that people need a choice. And so I decided that I would run and, number one, give people a choice. The second reason why I'm running is because I want to educate people. I think that a lot of people are just going by what the news media dictates to them, and they're not really actually investigating and seeing what politics is all about. And since I am a teacher, that's a very obvious place for me to start, is to educate people. And the third thing is that I like to serve people. I like to be helpful and to see if what I can do. And I know our small businesses are struggling, and our people in my district are struggling with taxes and things like that. And I would really like to help them if I could. So that's my motivation.
Thank you. Ingrid? You'll need to unmute, sorry. Ingrid, can you unmute?
There, yes,
go.
thank you. So good evening. Thank you for signing up for this event. My name is Ingrid Burnett. I was elected to be our state representative for District 19 in 2016. I'm looking forward to my last term after this election. The last 6 years in Missouri politics and government has seen unprecedented circumstances in Jefferson City, from a scandalized governor, a major flood, a tornado, and a complete shutdown caused by a pandemic. All this while major building renovations were occurring to celebrate our state bicentennial. I will tell you that navigating through these historic events required some sure-footed resolve and concentration on keeping Missouri safe and healthy. And to that end, I've had the honor of serving on the House Budget Committee, where I advocate strongly for public education, healthcare, safe and reliable infrastructure, including roads, and access to the internet. I believe that we should invest our resources in people, and that we do that best when we protect and expand access to growth opportunities like education, workforce development opportunities, health and mental health care, public safety, and the arts. I'm committed to advancing Missouri as a state where people feel valued and proud of who we are, and I would very much appreciate your vote this election. Thanks.
Thank you. Aaron?
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Anitra, and all of the members of the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. Again, my name is Aaron Crossley, and I'm running over here in Independence in House District 29, which is just most things south of 23rd Street. I'm running because I think we've forgotten what representative government means, and I'm disappointed that some candidates even chose not to show up tonight. I think that our community deserves people who are willing to show up and people who are willing to be accessible. And I've served people from 4 years old through end of life as a social worker. And I've seen how the bad policies that have been pumped out of Jeff City, especially in the last 20 years, impact people in our community negatively. And so one thing that I want to make sure that I use my expertise to tackle is reducing crime and creating a safe community for all of us. And I think we can do that through creating access to mental health care and substance use resources, investing in our first responders, especially equipping them to deal with the traumatic things that they see every day. And lastly, I want to make sure that we're addressing homelessness in our community. Part of my job in the past was to go out into homeless camps and connect people to services. So I know what it takes to end homelessness. I want to make sure that we are equipped as a city to deal with that both compassionately and sustainably.
Thank you. Robert?
Okay, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Also, thank you for giving us this opportunity this evening. And to answer your question with regard to what has motivated me, I've really dedicated my life to public service. I spent 6.5 years as a prosecuting attorney. I spent 3.5 years as a public defender and almost 10 years in our United States Air Force as an assistant staff judge advocate. And that's really what is to be honest, that's also what's motivated me. Since I've dedicated my life to public service, I grew up my mom was a single mom, grew up in a 1-bedroom house in Eastern Independence. And she taught me to stand up for people, stand up for those who don't have a voice, those who are unable or unwilling to use it, and being the strong person to help others. And that's just what I've done. That's what I've dedicated my life to doing. And that's what I'm doing in the House. Also, in addition to that, in addition to my experience with those 10 years, I've also been the sitting rep for 4. So I've done the job for 4 years as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Next question. What will be your top legislative priority and why? This time we'll start with Ingrid. Ingrid, you'll need to unmute.
Robbie, I'm so glad that you had the same problem as I did. Thanks for I didn't have to be the only one. No, I appreciate the question. I have a very strong background in education, 30 years as an educator in Kansas City in the Catholic schools. There were 15 in the Catholic schools and then 15 as an elementary school counselor in the independent school district. I also served on the Kansas City School Board for 6 years during some rather tumultuous times, but had the opportunity while being in those positions to really do some deep dives into what makes good education. And so that's always going to be my priority, making sure that we are adequately funding education, that we are taking care of our teachers, that our children are safe and healthy, and in an environment where they are valued and cared for.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, so there's a lot that I would like to do, right? I mean, I file bills every year that deal with all sorts of things. I've filed the firefighter cancer presumption bill that's made it out of committee. I've filed a bill that treats 911 first responders as treats 911 operators as first responders. I've filed that. That's made it out of the House. But if I could actually just do one thing, if I could fix one thing, I would really like to work on homelessness. I think that is just a problem that plagues our state, this country. And, I think no one just wakes up, opens their sliding glass door and just says, I'm going to go live in the woods today, right? There's a deeper problem to that. And a lot of the things that we have, a lot of the ways that we address this, we have to address the underlying problem. I could rent out a whole block or an apartment complex or whatever and house homeless people. But the problem with it is if we're not fixing the underlying problem, then we're not going to fix the problem, right? So, I mean, it's getting at the root of the issues. It's getting at, addiction, mental health, poverty, right? I mean, all of these things are part of that. And I think we have to address those underlying problems in order to fix that problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen with a K?
Thank you. I believe that I agree with everybody, what they have said so far, that all of the items that they have chosen as priorities are very good. I think that as I went through my district in number 19, there are a lot of small businesses. And we know that through the COVID time and when things were shut down, my daughter owns a small business down just north of the plaza. And oh my gosh, all those little businesses there, so cute. And so many of them had to close. And so I would like to look into helping the small businesses, making sure that they are taken care of, because just like what was said, if we want to help the homeless, we need to provide jobs. And if we don't have nice businesses for them to work in or to help them, then they're never going to be able to help themselves. So, and education. So really all the things tie into it when you're trying to help people stay afloat and just have jobs that they enjoy. So I think that would be my focus. And of course, along with that would come taxes and all the financial burdens that small businesses, healthcare, all of that has to be looked at to see what I can do to help those small businesses.
Thank you very much. And Aaron.
And I think I kind of jumped the gun in laying out some of my legislative priorities in my introduction, so I don't want to belabor the point. But again, I want to use my expertise as a mental health provider and as a social worker to make sure that we're creating a community that's safe, but in doing it so in a way that's compassionate and considerate of all stakeholders involved. You know, I've seen the difference that it makes when people have those mental health resources that they need when they didn't have them, and then once they are connected with them, how they are able to get back up on their feet. A commitment that I've made to first responders in our city is that the first bill that I will sponsor is a bill that will add PTSD as a presumptive right. You know, what we know about the human brain is that when it encounters over and over the traumatic things that other people are experiencing, we take those experiences and make them our own. And our first responders see unfathomable things in their day-to-day work. And so I want to make sure that they're equipped to handle those traumatic experiences. And I've even done that as part of my professional role in working for a hospital. I help train at the police academy officers around how to deal with trauma and how to understand their own trauma. And again, I want to use my own expertise in addressing homelessness in our community.
Thank you. Our next question is this. Should Missouri allow more foreign ownership of Missouri farmland and the influence of foreign corporate ownership? Why or why not? And Aaron with an A, we're going to come right back to you.
Okay, great. You can call me Aaron if that makes it easier.
I can call you what?
Aaron.
Aaron, okay. We
yeah.
might do that. We'll see about that.
The short answer is no. I think that we should put Missourians first. And at a time when inflation is high, when people are struggling to put food on their tables, we don't need to increase the interest of foreign entities in our state. We should protect Missouri farmland so that it can feed Missourians and so that it can provide for Missouri farmers.
Thank you. Karen?
I am a farm girl from the past, even though I live in Kansas City for the last 20 years. But I grew up rurally, and I know about the struggle of the small farmer, and I know about corporate organizations coming in and buying up all those little farms and then really running them out of business. So I would be against as far as foreign corporations coming in. Of course, if foreign people come in, and I would think that they would be domesticated and be Americans, that would be lovely for them to come in and buy up a farm and be a farmer. I'm not against that, but I am against the corporate thing because it does really hurt, I think, the farming in general, and especially in Missouri.
Thank you very much. Robert?
So just let me make that clear. The question is, should about foreign farmland? Absolutely not. I don't think. You know, you think you have a problem with inflation now, then what happens when foreign farmland is purchased by? It keeps going up every year, but if a third of foreign farmland is owned and they just decide not to farm it anymore, I think you got problems with prices now. Wait until that happens. I'm absolutely against it. We filed the bill. I know Senator Beck has filed the bill every year, filed it in the House. It seems to not go anywhere. But quite frankly, I think this is very important to our nation's security even. So I would be 100% against that.
Thank you very much. Ingrid?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I would have to agree with everyone who has spoken, and just underscore how inequitable that balance becomes when you have a large area of foreign owned corporate farms competing with these small farms that it drives up their costs, and it drives up their prices, and it drives them out of business. And so I would continue to object to allowing for more foreign owned farms.
Thank you. Our next question is this. The Police Department of Kansas City has been under the control of a police commission largely appointed by the governor since 1939. Would you support returning control of the police department back to the Kansas City Council? And we'll start with Robert.
Yeah, simple answer. I believe in local control, right? I mean, I think at the end of the day, we keep in the state, we keep coming back and clawing back parts of local control. And quite frankly, who better to determine that than the people of Kansas City? I think that that's just the easy way to say that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aaron?
Mhm.
Yes, I would support the local control of the Kansas City Police Department by the City Council.
Thank you. Ingrid?
I agree. I am opposed to the way that we're doing it now. We should return our police force back to the control of the community. We are the only city in the entire state and one of very, very few in the entire country who run their police funding this way. And now we have this, it's a constitutional amendment on the ballot that we're going to be looking at that puts more restrictions and mandates on how our local government polices itself. It's really offensive, in my opinion. We need to allow our locally elected officials to be in charge of how our money is allocated toward public safety.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, I agree with everyone, but you know what? I was really disappointed in Mayor Lucas's way that he defended the police in the last couple years. I mean, I remember when I first moved here that you could go down the highway and there were policemen, highway patrol, whatever, policemen from the cities, and they would not let people speed. And oh my gosh, you go down the streets nowadays and there's people zooming around you and they have to be like going 20, at least 15 or 20 miles per hour above the speed limit. And that isn't safe. And I really think that there's not enough police to go around because that's not the way it used to be. And so I would like to see that local, of course, people taking care of the police on a community level. But if it's the mayor and the council and the way that he defended the police, it's scary to me. What else could be done by a leader of the community, which I think hurt our community. And I would like our community to be more safe, and I would like it to be local. I just am not sure how that could be done and still make sure that that we have enough police to take care of the crime and even the misdemeanors and things like that. So I'm
Thank you. Thank you. That's your time.
Thank you.
Our next question is this. On November 8th, Missouri voters will vote on several constitutional amendments. Amendment 4 would permit the state legislature to require Kansas City to increase spending on the police department from 20% of its budget to 25%. What is your position on Amendment 4? Aaron, we'll start with you. You need to unmute.
I guess it was my turn to make that mistake.
Sorry.
You're fine. It's the nature of the world we live in right now. First of all, I disagree with the phrase defund the police. I think that we should pay our police well and all of our first responders for the hard jobs that they have in which they perform for us every day. They should be invested in through comprehensive trainings, through conflict de-escalation training, again, being able to cope with secondary trauma from the hard things that they see every day. However, I don't think it's right to cram down one municipality's throat how they should set their budget for their police department. This just feels like a retaliatory measure and not really something based in good policy or anything that the community is asking for.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Thank you. I probably have figured out from my previous answer that I'm opposed to this amendment. And for many of the reasons that Aaron brought up, this really was a retaliatory measure. Kansas City, as I understand it, already exceeds the required % of its budget to go to the police. And they attempted to take just that part that was exceeded and have a little more oversight in how it was used in a way that was going to continue to go to policing, but not so much in terms of the militarization piece. It had more to do with making sure that we had support systems out there to assist the police when dealing with some of the social problems that we're facing now. And that bill that got introduced and passed was a reaction to Kansas City trying to take some ownership, have some agency in how it chooses to spend our tax dollars, not the states. It's our tax dollars that we should be allowed to determine how they are spent.
Thank you.
That's my answer.
Thank you. Karen?
I have to agree with everybody too. I think that for the state to reach into Kansas City is not appropriate to determine that. And I do understand why they're doing it. And I hear everyone talking, but if you talk to the policemen and you talk to the first responders, they're not very happy with the way things were determined and without their consent. I mean, I don't think that if I had a job and suddenly they were cutting teacher salaries, just let's say that since that's my job, and suddenly someone just decided, hey, we needed money over here, so let's cut teacher salaries, that would make me very happy. And so I really think that something needs to be done to reallocate some funds back to salaries, or to have more police on the job is what I think, and not to have the police have to double time themselves and be tired on the job and everything. So I don't think the state should do it that way though. So I'm against it.
Thank you. Robert? There we go. Thanks.
I almost did it again. Yeah, so I actually voted for this bill when it came out of the House. I agree with much of what my friend Aaron said. I think we should support police. I think we should support them in pay, training, things of that nature. And I also agree that there should be local control, but ultimately this is one area that I did support. And so I will continue to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Another constitutional amendment on the ballot in November would legalize recreational marijuana in Missouri. Amendment 3 is over 35 pages long and contains multiple provisions, including a 6% state tax and expungement of simple marijuana convictions. What is your position on Amendment 3? And Robert, we're going to come right back to you.
All right. So first off, let me just say, I have on my Facebook, if you use Facebook, I've gone through and done a comprehensive breakdown of every single amendment that's going to be on the ballot this November. And for this one, I did the exact same thing. My personal thoughts are, I'm not a huge fan of the bill as written. However, I think that we should pass it. I think my hang up is that ultimately the Missouri legislature is never going to do it. The only way we will address this is if it comes through a ballot initiative. And then at that point, the Missouri legislature, if we are to fix some of these problems, we'll have to deal with it. And I think there are good parts to it. I think there are bad parts to it. And if, like, again, if you look at if you were to search that on my page, it would show, it goes through both the good and the bad. I think taking care of the convictions of folks who have simple marijuana charges and other marijuana charges, I think that's important. I'm not a huge fan of the licensing part. I think that's one of my big hangups. So I think just like any bill, there are good parts to it and bad parts to it. I'm going to support it, and I'm going to ask that others support it because I think it's a good way to make revenue, and it addresses some of these underlying problems with criminal justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
Well, I'm totally against it. The reason why I'm totally against it is because, you know, way back when all this discussion was about marijuana and all its meritorious uses, I found out that a lot of the money promoting marijuana was coming from tobacco companies. And I have not researched it within the last couple of years, but I'm assuming that that still was partly true. I mean, they lost their cigarettes because the Surgeon General said, you know, it's going to kill you. So they don't talk about secondhand smoke of marijuana. You know, they don't, I mean, you don't inhale, so maybe it's not that bad for your lungs, but there is some repercussion and health issues. Now, if you're using it for medicinal purposes because you need pain relief and it's better than synthetic drugs, and I'm all about marijuana if that's going to be used. But for recreational use, no. And besides, it stinks. So I'm against it.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Thank you. I am going to fall on the side of my colleague, Representative Sauls. I really liked the legislation that we took up this last session, sponsored by Representative Ron Hicks, that it had a really good plan for how marijuana should be regulated and where the revenue was going to go that came from the taxing and the fees on it. Having said that, that just didn't pass and couldn't get the traction that it needed. And so once again, our citizens took it in their hands to do the initiative petition process. It's not perfect. My concern is also with the licensing and the fact that it enshrines in our Constitution a licensing process that is not, that's not equitable. And it really, the troubling part is I see it as a bad impact on the free market. It really doesn't allow for the free market. So hopefully, I'm hoping that we can get this changed. Really, what we need to do is just make marijuana legal, legalize marijuana, period. And then we wouldn't have to worry about what we're looking at now.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate that the Missouri Constitution keeps getting more and more bloated because the supermajority in Jeff City has no one to fight with but themselves. And so they're not passing legislation that the people want, and the people are having to take recourse for themselves. You know, I do support legalizing marijuana recreationally for people over 21. You know, I think a really important part of this amendment is the expungement of previous nonviolent offenses. And as someone who has spent their career trying to help people get back up on their feet to get jobs, I've seen how hard it is for people that have that previous record to be able to get jobs. So I think it will open up pathways for employment for people. It will also free up law enforcement to be able to focus on violent crime and more serious offenses. You know, one concern I do have about the amendment, even though I think it will pass and I plan on voting for it, is that the amendment as written, it will open up licenses for people that, and this has already been said, that it will open up licenses for people that already have existing medical companies first before permitting others to obtain a recreational license, and at a time when we should be encouraging and supporting entrepreneurship and supporting job creation. I think this puts a limit on small business creation when we should be encouraging it.
Thank you. Amendment 3 is an example of a citizens initiative petition. By our current law, getting such a petition on the ballot requires obtaining the signatures of 8% of the voters in 6 of 8 congressional districts. Once on the ballot, a simple majority of voters is needed for the measure to pass. A new law was proposed in the last session of the Missouri House, which would increase the required signatures to 10% in all 8 districts and require 2/3 of the voters to support the measure in the election. This proposal is likely to come up in the legislature this session. What is your position on increasing the difficulty for citizens petitions? And we'll start this time with Ingrid.
You gave me the easy one. This really gets under my skin. And it's an example of what we're seeing with this hyperpartisanship that takes place in Jefferson City with such a supermajority. And it really needs to stop. The way that we continue to make it more and more difficult for people to freely access and participate in their government is really shameful and needs to stop. But the only way we're going to stop that is to change the balance a little bit and get more people who are willing to come and do some compromising, do some come together and create policy that we can get around as a community and not as this extreme end of the political spectrum.
Thank you. Aaron?
I believe that there should be more ways for you to make your voice heard and not less. That's why I have my cell phone number on my website. I think that, as a social worker, I've spent my career helping people make their voice heard and ensuring that they're able to make their viewpoint known. And as I mentioned earlier, this petition process is one of the last recourses that we have when our elected officials are not doing the work that we think that we should be doing, besides voting them out, which we should do if they're not working for us. Ultimately, our elected officials need to be reminded that they do work for us. And I think that we need to uphold this important thing that is already enshrined in the Missouri Constitution. It's worked well for decades, for a long time, and we need to keep it in place so that we can hold our government accountable.
Thank you. Robert? You need to unmute.
All right. So first off, I would say that the initiative petition process allows Missourians to have both the lawmakers they want and the laws that they want. And I think certainly tampering with it is wrong. I quite frankly, I know there are complaints about the process and what goes in the Missouri Constitution, but the reality is the reason we do it that way is because the next session we would put all this time and effort into passing something like Medicaid expansion, and then the Republican General Assembly would go around it and change it, and they're openly saying that. So that's why these things go in the Constitution. And I believe my friend Aaron said that just a few minutes ago, but that's why they're going on there. And I think any messing with it is wrong. I think we need to encourage people to take part. We need to encourage people to vote. We need to encourage people to be a part of this process. And this is a way they can get laws that they want when realistically the Missouri General Assembly is not doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
The reason why I became involved in politics was the very thing that we're talking about here, that we the people need to have a voice. And I think that this change will not be beneficial for the people to have a voice of what they need to be accomplishing. So I'm against it.
Thank you. According to a new law recently signed by Governor Parsons, Missouri voters will need to show a photo ID in order to vote, beginning with the election in November. Most voters have the required Missouri driver's license or passport. However, those who do not are more likely to be disadvantaged. What will you do to help voters in your district acquire the necessary photo ID? And we're coming back to you, Karen.
I don't know what I would do to help them besides just if I found people that didn't have one, then I would, as on a personal level, help them to obtain one. As a legislature in Jefferson City, I guess I could try to see if there was funds that we could help people get their photo ID. It just seems like a simple thing that we just need to reach out and help them. So that's all that I know that I would do.
Thank you. Robert?
I'd tell you what I'd do. I'd drive someone to get one, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's a matter of helping people. And this law is bad for so many reasons. It's not just, if your ID is expired. So if you have, if you're someone living in a assisted living facility and maybe you don't need a driver's license because at the end of the day, you're not driving and you're having issues trying to get one, you can't vote. And that's part of the problem with when we let Republicans pass laws like this, it comes back and it impacts people who are duly registered citizens. They just can't vote because of things like this. So I think it's a bad law, and I think we should be doing what we can to try to help people who are registered vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, I think one part that's really important about the law, for people to know about the law that was passed, even though there's certainly parts of it that I disagree with. One thing that's is helpful is that there is actually funding for people to be able to get those ID documents if they need them. So the state will pay for them now. They'll pay to help get their birth certificate, help pay to get that ID if they are seeking to be able to vote. So I think we need, one, to educate people on the fact that that's available to them, because voting is one of the most sacred rights, if not the most sacred right that we have as Americans. We should always seek to make voting easier and not harder for people who are entitled to vote. As part of my day job, I've helped people who were missing all of those documents, both their social security card, their birth certificate, and their ID, and starting from scratch is incredibly hard. But they wanted to vote, and so I helped them even get to the polls on election day. So I think overall, just making sure that people know if they don't have a photo ID right now, under this new law that was passed this year, that they can get a photo ID to be able to vote.
Thank you. And Ingrid?
Yeah, so this particular law really impacts and the people that I have dealt with, elderly women in particular. I've had several contact me, constituents, about it's not just a matter of not being able to get their birth certificate and their social security card. If they have been divorced and remarried and changed their name, they need to get marriage certificates and divorce decrees in order to prove that their name is actually their name that is on their current driver's license or passport. And while the state says they have funds to help with that, if those divorces or marriages occurred in another state and those records are in the custody of another state, they don't have any authority to really go after those. And so there are people who are being denied their right to vote because of this law. And I've talked with, so one of the things, and this is where being an experienced legislator comes in handy. We have liaisons in each department that I can get in touch with to help with some of these issues. But they tell me they are already looking at ways that they want to adapt the language in this law. And so I will work with them to see what we can do for that.
Thank you. What is your position on providing public funding to faith-based schools? We'll start with Robert.
You know, my personal thoughts are, I believe that if you want to send your kids to private school, you want to homeschool your kids, you want to send your kids to public school, I think that's certainly within your rights. I personally have issues when I do not think that public money should go toward that. You know, I think there are other ways to do that without using public money, and I support your choice to send your kids think whatever education you think they should get. But the reality is this: Missouri's foundation formula is based on numbers that are from 2005. So, you know, we're 50th or 49th or something in the country in paying our teachers. So we're looking at taking more money away from education and to a system that is already stretched so thin. I don't agree with that. You know, I think, like I said, if you want to send your kids to private school or homeschool your kids, go ahead. That's perfectly fine. But I think I'm not interested in taking more money away from a system that is, quite frankly, using numbers from 2005. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Thank you. So yes, I oppose sending public dollars to private and religious schools. We are required by the Constitution to provide a free and appropriate public education to all children. We are not required to give them the flavor of the month. We need to really rethink the way we look at education. Our education system is more like an infrastructure. You wouldn't want people to be allowed to take the taxes they pay to go to roads, to remove their portion of those taxes and put them only toward the street that their house is on, which is what it's a comparison of what we're seeing with allowing families to take their tax or estimated allotment for their child and move it into another system that weakens the fabric that we need to be building up and strengthening in order to provide that quality education to all children. If you want to add to that, if you want to make that add some additional ingredients to that, that's your right, and you should be able to do that. But we shouldn't have to pay for that.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, you know, I am going to give my answer as someone that graduated from Bible college with a degree in Bible and theology. I'm going to say it as somebody that used to be a pastor of an evangelical church, somebody that still goes to church every Sunday, and somebody that wakes up every morning and still does their daily devos. I don't think that our tax dollars should go to private schools, whatever flavor they are. You know, I'm really uncomfortable with that because that takes away the oversight that we have when we elect our local school boards. And at the end of the day, when faith-based private schools start taking public money, there will be strings attached to that. And I don't think that those private schools want those strings either. So I definitely don't support that. I think that the great thing about public schools is that public schools take every child, whether they have complicated education plans, you know, they live close to the school. This year, the legislature couldn't even approve school bus funding until the last 2 days of session. And so thinking that we're going to be able to bus children to different private schools is just absurd. And I think that we will do better if we would invest in our public schools the way that they've always needed to be invested in, so that we can create real world experiences for children in their educational day that meet every student's educational need.
Thank you. Karen?
Because I have some areas in my district that are not as well off as other areas, and I have talked with some people there, they really are in favor of choice, which I think would be a voucher. I'm not in favor of, letting them go willy-nilly wherever they want to go. But I think that parents do have a choice of where they went, and they're taxpayers. If they pay their taxes, and the part of their tax money, can be involved in their children's education, I think that that would be a positive thing for parents in my district. And I think that should be allowed. Now, how it can be done and how it can be done so that it doesn't take away from public schools. I'm a public school teacher. That would be a very fine line that we would have to walk. So I would have to be doing some research about that, but I'm not opposed to vouchers.
Thank you. Staying in the area of education, what is your opinion on the value and the need for universal pre-kindergarten schooling for all children? And we'll start this time with Ingrid.
Thank you. Golly, I could talk a long time on this one, but I think first and foremost, when we're looking at universal pre-K, that is an absolute equalizer in how our children are prepared for school. And we know from years of research that and data collection that when children attend high quality daycare and early childhood experiences, they grow up to be better students. We have less delinquency. They are better. Tend to be more employed. We have less. We have less prisons or people going to prison. It's an incredible investment that we can make up front that makes a huge difference at the other end of the spectrum. So for that reason, I think that's enough to just support it. In addition to that, we also know that one of the biggest barriers to our workforce development right now is daycare for their children. And this is not just a matter of an education issue at this point anymore. It's also a workforce issue.
Thank you. Robert?
I agree with everything that Representative Burnett just said. I think this is a continuing problem that we have. Touching on what I said earlier with regard to education and where we are. If you look at other countries and the way that they do and treat education, we're looking at going to 4-day work week or 4-day school weeks, even in Independence, which is a huge district as far as the state is concerned. And we're doing that because at the end of the day, we're trying to find ways to stretch the dollar, make ends meet, right? And this is something that, like I said before, we're using the foundation formula is based on numbers from 2005. And this is something that could help. It's an additional thing we could use to help kids get ready for school, get more education in. And I certainly think it was something we should use. And I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
I'm not opposed to it. I, like everyone said, I actually ran a daycare when my children were young, back in the day when you could do that in your home. And then I worked and I took my children to daycares, and there are some that are really good and some that are not very good. So having the option to have an educational place for you to take your children, I think is a positive thing. I don't know the cost of it. I'd have to research how much more money we're going to have to need for education if we undertake this great opportunity for the liabilities, for all of the different aspects of it. I don't know if it's financially feasible. And so I'd have to look at that, but I'm not opposed to it.
Thank you. Aaron?
I'm a member of the Centurions, which is a leadership development program of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce. And earlier this year, we went and toured Pre-K for Essay down in San Antonio, which showed the wonderful results that community had in implementing Pre-K that was universally available to all families. And what I remember most was just seeing again how they incorporated real world experiences into the kids' days. They were outside, we helped kids garden, but it also had great outcomes. So when they went back and studied the results of the program, it showed that kids had greater educational development later in their educational career. And also it put more money into families' pockets because, as has already been mentioned, parents were able to go to work. As these students got older and entered the workforce themselves, they were able to earn more. And so I think it should be something that we look at making available for people. Again, as Representative Saul said, I don't think it's something that's going to happen tomorrow because we're still trying to figure out how to fund our own K through 12 program well. But I think it would be something of benefit, and it's something statistically that has been shown to pay for itself.
Thank you. According to an article from a January issue of the Kansas City Star, Missouri has the 4th highest gun death rate in the country and ranks in the bottom 10 for its gun laws. What gun regulations do you support? And we'll come right back to Aaron.
First of all, I want to say that I support the Second Amendment and responsible gun ownership. I think everyone has the right to protect themselves and their own property. And as a social worker, I've seen what happens when a gun falls into the wrong hands. And I don't think that we have to just throw our hands up in the air and say that there's nothing that we can do about gun violence. I think there are simple things that we can do to make sure that people that want to own a firearm and are legally able to do that can. So I think that includes closing the boyfriend loophole, that includes red flag laws, and also ensuring that there are proper background checks on sales.
Thank you. Karen?
The theory behind gun control, of course, is that you're taking guns out of circulation. And I just have read a statistic about Chicago, who has like a ton of gun laws, and yet their crime rate or with using guns is like way, way high. So, I think that what has been said by Aaron is correct, that I think that by taking buybacks and things like that you're hurting the regular people who actually buy things from stores. And when you have crimes, most of those guns, I think they said 80% were like under the table guns that were purchased not in regular stores. So that's kind of hard to regulate. But if you did have regulations, I think that people who purchase guns need to take classes or prove that they actually know gun safety. And I don't think that we have any kind of regulation on purchasing guns that would be a requirement. And I also think that that we need to not make any laws that would make it harder for the regular citizens to own guns, because unlike Aaron, I believe in the Second Amendment. So.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, so to start off first, I've been around guns my whole life. I'm an active duty, I'm a service member. I've been trained in guns. I've had a firearm since I was 13 years old. I think that we can both support the Second Amendment and make it so that some 19-year-old who's spouting off on Facebook how he's going to shoot up a school can't legally purchase a firearm. I think the problem that you see in Missouri is that, quite frankly, we've gone so far in the opposite direction. I support the Second Amendment. I support your right to own firearms. I think that's a thing. If you want to do, you should absolutely be able to do it. I want to push back a little bit with something that Karen said. Actually, two things. One, Chicago is almost to the border of Indiana, and the Chicago does have crime, but also Chicago is extremely close to a state that does not have any of these laws. And another point too, with regard to, honestly, I'm kind of tired of hearing, well, they'll just get the guns anyway. Okay, well, quite frankly, my question I present to you then: do you lock your doors at night? Well, I mean, or when you leave, right? At the end of the day, if someone wants in, they're getting in. That's the way that goes. But you still lock it as a form of protection. It's the same concept. We don't make it easier for criminals and people who are wanting to do harm to others to get guns. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Thank you. Well, I didn't hear Aaron say that he was against the Second Amendment. And I am not either. I am in favor of gun safety. I think the question was, can you restate the question, please?
Sure. According to an article from a January issue of the Kansas City Star, Missouri has the 4th highest gun death rate in the country and ranks in the bottom 10 for its gun laws. What gun regulations do you support?
Okay, so gun safety is what I support. The boyfriend loophole is really, we're the only state, I think, that doesn't have that, and we don't have that now because of that SAPA law that we passed, the Second Amendment Protection Act, that forbids our police from cooperating with the feds when it comes to enforcing federal gun laws that are not also gun laws in Missouri. So I would support, we bring that up every year, and we have robust debate, and it sounds like support, but it doesn't go anywhere. Red flag laws, same thing. And then gun safety, just insisting that our gun owners know and understand, and we have some way of verifying that they know what gun safety measures are, and have a plan to implement them.
Thank you. Suicide constitutes 54% of Missouri gun deaths. What specific efforts should be made to reduce this loss? And we'll come back to Karen.
That is a hard win because we're talking about, owning guns and taking care of guns and purchasing guns. And the problem is not the guns. The problem is we have a lot of people that are despondent over their situations. It's kind of a mental health issue more than it is a gun issue. We've tried to have suicide hotlines and tried to help people. And of course, if we know people have problems, we try to not have them have guns, but they have ways of getting them. And so I just feel like that we just need to keep pressing on and trying to help people with their mental health issues and see if we can give them hope. And some of the things that we've talked about today, tonight is that I think each one of us here wants to reach out and touch somebody and give them hope. So I think that it's the mental health that's the problem.
Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, as a mental health provider, this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. I've already mentioned before that I want to fight hard to make sure that we have mental health resources for people in our community. and this is going beyond the common sense gun legislation that I've already mentioned. I think there's been a lot of money thrown at the mental health system recently, and I want to be that expert in the capital that can help direct it in the most meaningful way possible. This summer, 988 went live, so anyone that is experiencing a mental health crisis can access immediate mental health care. Also, recently, Senator Blunt and Senator Stabenow, through bipartisan legislation, worked on expanding the Excellence in Mental Health Act by expanding certified community behavioral health centers, or we call them CCBHOs here in Missouri. So making sure that we're investing in the system well, making sure that the stigma is reduced on people being able to access that kind of care, I think is really important, especially children are a growing demographic in suicidality, and so I want to make sure that we're protecting them from that.
Thank you. Ingrid?
Thank you. I would just like to agree with everything Aaron just said. One of the things I'm most proud of in my work on the budget was managing to work across the aisle and with a consortium of people to get the Senate and House members to put an additional $1 million into the funding for school services for mental health, and that these dollars can be used for schools to hire extra mental health professionals as they need to. We need to do more of that. We need to add more support for early intervention that starts with education and helping students and children and parents and teachers and people who work out in the public sector on what the signs are, what to look for, what's okay to ask. Too often people don't really explore when they suspect someone might be suicidal because they're afraid they might give them the wrong idea. And we need more training and more education.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, so I would say, quite frankly, I think that is one of the biggest failures that the Missouri legislature has done. We do not address mental health to the degree that we should. I think we need to do certainly more in that regard. I think it's also important to note that when it comes to mass shootings, I think a lot of these incidents are actually, I think it's an attempt to, I think it's suicide related, right? So 90% of these mass shootings in the past 5 years are people 18, men in the ages 18 to 25. And the overwhelming vast majority of them tell somebody, right? They tell somebody this is what they want to do, this is what they're going to do. And I think the other part to that is also, it may be difficult, but it's making sure that you, when people have these conversations, when they talk about these things, we treat them seriously and do something about it, because it is, life is very precious. I'm a service member, and we go over that all the time. We talk about that. That's another area that, but I have it within the military. That's important. So, thank you.
Thank you. Would you support changing Missouri law to require financial compensation to persons who were wrongly incarcerated and later exonerated? We'll start with Aaron.
Yes, I would. I think that that's what we as a society would owe them. And recently there's been a push of not even wanting to get them out of jail when they've been proven, when they've been shown not to be guilty, when the prosecutors are saying they're not guilty. It takes a lot to get back up on one's feet. And I think that that's an important area that our state needs to focus on, is re-entry as a whole. Helping people be connected back to job services, to find housing, to get back up on their feet is really the least that we would owe somebody in that situation.
Thank you. Karen?
Yes, everything Aaron said, for someone to have part of their life taken away because of a mistake, I think some compensation should be involved and helping them get a job and get their life back together.
Thank you. Robert?
Yeah, I think honestly, I think I need to address the fact that both Governor Parson and Eric Schmidt both did not blocked Kevin Strickland from getting out. I mean, at the end of the day, this is kind of what we're up against, right? If someone has been wrongfully convicted. I was a prior prosecutor, I was a prior public defender. I did both for a matter of 10 years, as I indicated earlier. And if you are wrongfully convicted, I don't think there's I think this is just the least you can do, right? I mean, some of these folks, Kevin Strickland spent most of his life in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. And it took the Missouri General Assembly passing a bill that allowed prosecutors to come back and ultimately fix some of these wrongs. And as I indicated, Eric Schmidt and Governor Parson both didn't want to do this. And I think it's a travesty. Kevin Strickland missed his mom's funeral because he was waiting for the process to work out for the local area prosecutor to make sure that he could get out. So I absolutely support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ingrid?
I'm a yes. I think all of the reasons have been stated and don't need to belabor them.
Okay, thank you. So we're coming down to the end of our evening here, and there must be some question you wish I had asked, but I didn't ask it. So this is your stunning opportunity to ask the question that you wish I'd asked and give your own answer. And we're going to start with Robert.
Yeah, so I guess the thing that I would like to address, quite frankly, is, the Missouri General Assembly is 70% Republican, 70% Republican, 30% Democrat. And I think that we get stuck on some of these issues that are they're distractions, right? We can talk about certain things that are going to affect 5 people in the state or aren't even happening in the state, right? Those are the things that get attention from various outlets. But the reality is the Republican legislature right now can pass anything they want without us. They've got the governor, they've got 70% of the House, they've got 70% of the Senate. And we spend time focusing on these things rather than our roads, rather than teacher pay, right? Like I said, we're 50th teacher pay, state pay. We don't pay people. Children's Division is having trouble keeping employees, and that is one of the hardest jobs. You want to, they work on call. You may have to go in on Christmas Eve, stop your time with your family to go in and pull kids out of their home on Christmas Eve. Very stressful, very hard. We don't pay them enough. We don't pay state employees enough. And this is all at their feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron, what question do you wish I'd asked?
I wish we would have been able to talk a little bit about the recent tax cuts that happened here in Missouri. I agree with their express intent, which is to help put money back in the pockets of Missourians, to help fight against people's struggle to put food on the table because of the worldwide inflation that we are experiencing. But it does so little to actually do that. The lowest income earners, the lowest 20% of income earners will only get about $3 back in their pocket a year. It's about 25 cents. that, the middle income earners are only going to get about $131 a year, which is enough, I guess, to keep our Netflix subscriptions afloat every month. What really would have made a difference and what I want to fight for are for those senior citizens and retirees in my community that have told me that their property taxes are too high. And so I want to find a way to address that and to lower them and to cap them for them. I wish that they would have helped eliminate the sales tax on food and found a way to make that happen. I wish they would have taken the $15 billion that we have just sitting in the bank account in Jeff City that they're sitting on top of like Scrooge McDuck. And I wish that they would have given us a gas tax holiday and use that to fix our roads and bridges while gas and inflation is high. So I want to get down to Jeff City to fight for those, just really low-hanging fruit that is available to us.
Thank you. Ingrid, what question do you wish I'd ask?
There we go. Well, taking a little different track here, I wish you would have asked me who supports me. And my answer would be, I have a very broad base of support. And the teachers, I have endorsements from the teaching associations and from the School Administrators Association. I have endorsements from labor organizations, and I have support from the Kansas City BizPAC, that is the Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, and the Downtown Council. I get I have support from community organizations like La Raza, Greater Kansas City Women's Political Caucus, nurses, and healthcare providers, as well as people who are in favor of pro-choice and pushing back against this very restrictive and dangerous, reckless bill, really, House Bill 126, that makes all abortion illegal, even in cases of rape and incest. I get this kind of support, this broad base of support, because of my ability to work with people and to work on both sides of the aisle and to be available to people to come and share their concerns and try to work through them.
Thank you. And Karen, what question do you wish I'd asked?
I guess I wish that you would have asked my feelings about state rights as opposed to federal government regulations. And that's another reason why I would like to go to Jefferson City, because I believe that the decisions should be in the local hands of the people, and that mandates and regulations from the federal government should be left in the hands of the states, because each region has different populations and different climates, and it's hard really for the central government to dictate to the whole United States what should be and shouldn't be done. So I would like to leave that in the hands of the states locally.
Thank you. And thank you to all our candidates for a really excellent discussion this evening. We're very appreciative of your time and your willingness to attend. It's now time for your 2-minute closing remarks. The order will be in another random order. And this time we're going to start with Aaron.
Thank you again, Elizabeth, and all of you at the Women Voters for hosting this. Thank you for those of you that have Zoomed in tonight to be a part of the democratic process. I think making sure that you know what the people you're voting for stand for is really important. So thank you for taking time to either watch this now, or if you're watching this recorded, thank you for doing that. I'm a first-time candidate for office. I have never done this before. It's an exhilarating experience. I'm certainly not a perpetual politician. And one thing that is really cool as someone that has lived in this community for almost 2 decades is now to drive around my community and see one house and be able to say, that woman I talked to there, she really cares about our public education system there. You know, that family, they're really concerned about their gun rights. That gentleman there is really concerned about access to healthcare, and that it just tickles me every day as I get up and go to work, just like you all do. It's an incredible feeling to be able to hear your concerns and to be able to talk through it with you and how we can actualize what you want out of the state representative. So thank you, as I've gone to thousands of doors. Thank you for trusting me with your stories and trusting me to take those stories down to Jeff City to make change for you and to represent you well. I would love it if you would be able to reach out anytime you have any ideas you want to share on how I can represent you well in Jefferson City. And you can reach out to me at aaroncrossley.com. I would encourage you to reach out anytime. Again, my email address is on there. My cell phone number is on there. So text or call anytime. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ingrid? Oh, Ingrid, you're muted. Oops, still muted.
Okay,
There we go.
all
There we
right.
go.
there I am. Crazy times. I want to thank the league not only for doing the work to put this together, but also for the work that you do to make sure voters have a reliable source of information when it comes to elections. I believe that the most important safeguard we have for our democracy and thus our freedom is our election system. And now more than ever, the people you elect for state government are critical to protecting your right to vote. Missouri's election laws are becoming more and more restrictive with burdensome requirements of voters and hamper volunteer organizations like the League that are dedicated to providing accurate information. I'm Ingrid Burnett. I am the Democratic candidate for House District 19, and I'm running for re-election to protect our right to participate freely in our government and to pursue our happiness.
Thank you. Karen?
Thank you so much to the League of Women Voters for having this. It's an opportunity for me to get to meet my incumbent that I'm running against. And it's
Karen, I'm going to ask you to stop just a minute because I want to give you the same opportunity to be spotlighted. There we go.
okay.
Please start again.
All right. I just said that I thank you guys for having us, and it's nice to meet my incumbent that I am running against and to hear her views. I appreciate that so much. So thank you, Ingrid, for being on here with me, and also for Aaron and for Robert. I enjoyed hearing what you had to say. I myself, like I said, this is my first time being in politics too, and it's eye-opening of all the things that are required and good, because they should be required for each of us if we're going to participate in our government and represent our people. And I think it's an opportunity for me to let people know that I really truly believe that the American worker is the backbone of America. And I really want to support those American workers and their families and the wages, and try to help them. And I also believe that every one of us deserve to have not be deprived of life, liberty, or the pursuit of happiness. So I'm a very big constitutionalist, both Missouri and at the federal government. I think that we need rules and we need laws. Of course, they can be enhanced, and we have ways to do that. And I think we need to go through proper channels and have that done, and not just have people telling us what to do. I think the people need a voice, and I would like to be a leader and to give the people in District 19 a voice and a choice this year. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And finally, Robert.
Yes, so I want to thank you as well for having us. I think this is always a great opportunity to allow folks to hear what their representatives have to say and look at the issues and ask questions. I think it's all very important. So thank you for that. What I would say is, I was born and raised in Independence, Missouri. My mom was a single mom. I'm the son of two of parents who both worked in factories. I grew up in a one-bedroom house in Eastern Independence. I know what it's like to live paycheck to paycheck. I know what it's like to have to worry about whether or not you're going to have enough money to get to the end of the week. Those are very much my beginnings. I was the first person in my family to graduate from college, and I've dedicated my life to public service. I've defended this country in the armed forces. I've protected victims of crime. I've put violent criminals behind bars. I've defended the rights and liberties of people. And I've used my voice to help others. And that's what I'm going to continue to do as your state representative. And I would just ask that, this election, it's very important. And I know we've got good candidates. I know I've heard from some tonight. So I just want to say, if you want to help, you can reach out to me at robert@robertsauls.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. I'm certainly happy to help you, and we can continue to fight for democracy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Genuinely appreciate all of you being with us tonight. And I also want to thank our audience for their questions that they sent in earlier and for their attention tonight. Remember that a recording of this forum will be available soon on the League website. Usually takes a day or two. Please take time to share the insight that you've gained tonight with your family and friends, and be sure to get out to the polls and vote on November 8th. No excuse early voting will start on October 25th. Remember to consult vote411.org to review your candidates and your ballot proposals. If you need help determining your district, as I did, please consult the Board of Elections website. Thank you and good night.